Good evening. I'll now call the City of Cannon Falls City Council meeting for Tuesday, December the 2nd to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Duncan.
Here.
Holst.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Mattson.
Here.
McCusker.
Yes.
Schoblum.
Here.
And Mayor Robinson.
All please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the City Council meeting for this evening. At this time, the chair will take a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Merle, a second by Bill. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. That moves us down to, I should say, public input. Citizens may speak to issues not on the agenda. Before speaking, please give your name and address for the minutes. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anyone that wishes to address the council this evening under public input? Seeing as there is no one that wants to speak, we will move on to the consent agenda. I can't even speak tonight. Items on this area of the agenda may be adopted or they may be removed and placed on the business area of the agenda for discussion purposes before approving. For the folks at home, I will read the consent agenda. Item A is the just and correct claims for the accounting period ending November the 26th, 2014. Item B are the meeting minutes for the November 12th, 2014 City Council meeting. Item C are the meeting minutes for the November 18th, 2014 City Council meeting. Item D are the meeting minutes for the November 18th, 2014 City Council work session. And item E is the Cannon Cruiser Car Club annual request. Are there any items anybody wishes to bring down? If not, the chair will take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
I'll second.
A motion by Merle, second by Bill. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That moves us on to council business, which is our budget for next year, our levy, and that's Resolution 2109, adopting the 2015 tax levy and budget. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Johnson.
Good evening, Mayor Robinson and members of the council. It's my privilege to be presenting you the proposed final budget and levy. We have, as you recall, we have met at the end of August. You have met in September at the proposed adoption here or meeting, at which we did adopt the proposed levy, initial proposed levy of 8.2%. The initial one brought to you was 9.6% levy increase. We met again November 18th, at which time you were presented with a 6.1% increase in the levy. And staff was directed to come back to you with some modifications to that, some reductions, and we are here tonight to propose what you'll see is a 3.7% levy increase. And I'm just going to quickly go through a few pages here. You have went through the information over the previous 3 meetings, 3 workshop sessions, and so a lot of this is going to be redundant. I'll try not to be too redundant, but I will go through this first, and then if you have questions of Linnell or me after that, we'll take it from there. But ultimately, at the end of your packet, there is a resolution presented for your consideration for adoption tonight. So I will present. We can accept. This is actually part of a public input meeting. It's not a public hearing as such, as has been done typically in the past. Laws have changed. Open up for discussion and then potentially official adoption of the resolution. I want to point out in this spreadsheet, and you've seen it, you've seen semblances of this before, and you have copies at your desk if you can't read from the screen, but the total levy increase, as I mentioned, I'm just showing here the last 2 years, actually, the proposed 15 and then last year. The 2.17, just under 2.2, the 14 levy, and 2.2 now, 2.25 translates into a 3.7% levy increase. As I mentioned previously, the city's tax capacity, and I'll show a little broader view of this on the next slide, did increase this year for the first time, and well, actually is finally starting to increase again after a few years once market values were reduced residentially and commercially, not only here but pretty much statewide. They are coming back, plus we've seen from work in the past that you folks have done and staff has done and the community's been involved with, the growth is we're finally seeing the growth on our tax rolls. And the translation to all this, really the important number that I see is the tax rate itself, the tax capacity rate. In 14, it was 65.21%, 62.03. In 15 is in this proposed budget, which is almost a 5% decrease in the tax rate. This extends out a couple years. The levy, all I want to show here is the total levy in 2012. You've got just under a 2.26, 2.23 in 13, 2.17, 2.25. The levy itself has really you've been able to keep the levy fairly consistent, and I think that shows good signs of management. The tax capacity, of course, from 12 to 13 was decreased. 14, we started seeing an increase, and then 15, that's just over a 9% increase in the tax capacity, which is good news for taxpayers. And then the resulting tax capacity rate, now this is just the local city rate, is just under 71 in 12, just under 75 in 13. You can see the direction that's going, 65.21 in 14 and 62.03 in this proposed levy. And where that particularly, I'm going to focus on this number, the 65.21 and the 62.03. What does that really mean to you or to the taxpayer? And I'm going to give residential homestead examples here, which is the majority of our situations with property taxpayers. With a market value of residential homestead with a market value of $100,000, there would be a decrease with this proposed levy or an end budget of $31.70 in the city portion of the taxes for the year. And with a $200,000 home, that would amount to a $63.40 decrease. Now these are going to be estimates within a few dollars here and there, depending on what the extended out tax capacity rate that the county assessor puts on for Cannon Falls. And then I looked at the commercial side of this with again with $100,000 and $200,000 values, which are commonly probably your downtown districts more than anything, or businesses. $37.70 decrease for $100,000 and $127.20 decrease for commercial. This you saw at the last workshop meeting, and what I wanted to show here was have been at a couple of meetings recently where I've heard the comment that the property taxes in Cannon Falls are so high, and when you look at this chart, we're actually below average as far as the tax rate. If you look here, this is using 2014 rates because those are the ones that we have access to. And there are 15 cities here, all regional, so it's not really pick and choose. There's 15 cities all in this region. The tax rate on the average is 67.58. Obviously, the higher this number, the higher the property taxes. And then even citywide, when you include the county, the school district, and any special levies, Cannon Falls last year, 132, still under the average of all these cities of 138. The next chart, that just shows it graphed out, where if you look at Cannon Falls, the second city in here, and you go across, you can see kind of we're in the middle of the ballpark there as far as the surrounding approximate 15 cities. So I'm going to go back to my desk. We'll touch base on some of the highlights that we talked about at the last meeting, but again, you've heard this before, but Linnell will I be ready for questions for you.
Okay, so we have a proposed 3.7% increase in the levy for 2015. And part of that was a 2.5% COLA. And I asked if we could run it at 2% and how that would impact the levy.
Okay, and I had, Linnell did work up those numbers, and I did a couple different things with that just for, to present to you. One would be a 2% COLA, first of the year for the entire year, and another scenario with a 2% first of the year and a 2.5% on July 1st. Keeping in mind that what was in the previous budget was a 3% COLA for employees. So we did take it down 0.5%. What's in front of you does show a 0.5% reduction from where we were at on November 18th. But then Linnell did run those numbers on the 2 and the 2.5%.
Okay, as Ron explained, we have a couple of different scenarios here. First one is if we did a 2% from January through June, and then 2.5% from July through December. That would result in a levy increase of 3.5% and an estimated tax capacity rate of 61.90. If we went to a 2% for the entire year, it would be 3.2% levy increase with an estimated tax capacity rate of 61.759.
What, if we were to look, and by the way, I think everything you guys have done is great. My only question was on the COLA increase. If we were to drop that to say a 2, we still have negotiations ongoing with our unions. What happens if come back and contracts call for a higher COLA than what we might accept in our budget? What is that just going to strip our reserves down some?
That you'd be looking at going into reserves on that if you set the levy lower than.
Okay. I'm not thinking too much about the negotiations. I'm just thinking a worst case scenario, mediation, arbitration, that kind of argument.
It's my intention, and I assume yours, that if we put in a 2.5%, which is shown here, obviously that doesn't mean that that's immediately assigned, because we have the 2 union agreements still open, and then plus then the non-union will follow. So it'll be a while before we set wages, actually, or where you set wages for 2015.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else?
Not that.
What else does anybody have for the budget?
I got some questions here. And I don't have the answers. I just wrote this down, so it could be thought about. Number one, I wrote down what happened in 2014. We had extra engineering, we had sewer and water studies, we had turn lanes, we had raw Bristol. We bought another truck, we did other things. Number two, we had water main breaks, we had water credits. We had to repair the 2nd Street. Number three, we hired another officer, which I truly felt was a good thing. It not only made the town safer, it makes the staff safer, to balance their work times out better. We updated some of our public works equipment and then hopefully the library games are done with, so we don't have to deal with that anymore. We had administrative changes this year. We had ambulance changes. I look over the budget where it's at. The neat thing is to look at it, see the amount of income that's going up for us, because we haven't had that for like 3 years. The way I see it, you got a choice of going with the 6.5% increase, and I don't see that as a bad thing. We managed to struggle through the last 3 years and basically keep it neutral, or some years we even went down 2%. To me, the other option you got is to lower the reserves to 45%. The other options you got is to bond the library, the raw Bristol package, and the Second Street package, and you can keep your reserves higher if you want to do something like that. But don't forget that our reserves is an extra tax on people. If a 40% reserve is going to wreck our bond rating, shame on them. If your bills in town as far as being paid here are only as good as the people willing to pay them. So I feel totally comfortable going all the way down to 40%. When I came on the council, we were at 32%, and Phil Ham's leg was jumping back here all the time. If you lower the reserve to 45%, you probably can drop another 1 or 2% off the increase we're going to have. I also would like the council to think about, when we get to the water and sewer projects, that if you drop that reserve another 2-3%, put it in the water and sewer funds, we can also keep from raising that too. I think our sewer and water bills, when they start getting higher than our electric bills, we're getting too high with them. Number 7 things I think we can do next year is we can look at bidding out our engineering. We can look at bidding out auditing. I noticed this last month we had a $60,000 charge for sludge hauling down the sewer plant. I was kind of wondering why that wasn't put out on bids. I noticed last month we had a $6,000 charge for repair on a lift station, and I thought we bought our own truck and boom so we could do that ourselves. These aren't anything I'm saying there's anything wrong with. I just, as you look over this whole budget, you think about all this stuff. Robbie mentioned the workman's comp, but I asked Ron if there's any way to lower the deductible to help with that, but there isn't much you can do about that, and I certainly want our people to have good insurance. Some of the other questions I would have is the $15,000 that we have on the library storage. I don't know where we're renting that or what the situation is on that. I know there was $24,000 in books in there. There was another thing in there, a Selco service contract, $12,000 a year. One bad thing I thought was it would have been nice to have this packet that we got this week at our other meetings, because now we're kind of down to the last minute. So in closing, and speaking just as a common person from Cannon Falls, I do believe we need some cushion in our reserves. But to me, anything over 40% is an extra tax. I think it's been a good year. I think there's been challenges. I think we worked through them. The one good thing is I think we got a lot better freeze-up policy because of our experiences last year with water main freeze-ups and that stuff. That's a good thing that came out of this. I'd like to see us lower our reserves a little more. I'd like to see us keep things as neutral as possible. And I'd also like us to see to keep the sewer and water funds down. And I'd also like to thank the staff for putting out this stuff because it drives me crazy. So that's just my input on where things are at. Thank you.
What he's talking about is on page 10 of 26, under the library expense. It's been 15,000 since 2011, except for 1 year it went down. Do you know what that would be? Yeah, no, that's fine.
You know, the thing I thought about that, Morris, is I don't know how much square footage we need for that storage. I assume we'd want fairly good storage for something like that. I assume it's books or something. But I also thought about you could rent a one-bedroom apartment for $600 a month and shove it all in there. It'd be cheaper than this.
You're talking about the building rental expense?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's charged, the city gets that money, that the general fund receives money for that. That's what the general fund charges the library for their building. It's not paying out to anybody else, it's going to the general fund.
So when you read that budget over, I thought of that right away. Why is it that we even do that stuff? I don't understand why we play them games like that. Is that something you have to show as an expense, so then?
Yeah, it's part of the cost of operating the library, and it's something that, my understanding goes back to Selco and the formulas that they use in calculating the cost of operating library, and then for the funding that they get through Selco. So it's part of that. We also charge expenses to some other buildings in the city as well, so it's not just the library.
So we actually don't have a rental place.
No,
okay.
no, that
So
is,
it does, it sticks out, that's why.
yeah. it-
If you look down on the next, or a couple pages down for the fire department building, the same expense is there for 15,444.
Right, and it's also in the motor vehicle
Yeah.
one as well. So those are the three that we do charge rent.
I got one question. When I was going through all this, over the years, we've had the police department, we've had the fire department, we've had the secretaries and all this, contracts. Why don't we ever see the library? Did I miss it, or,
Contracts for,
well, the employees and that? When you negotiate and all that.
they're non-union employees, so there's no negotiation.
Right, they receive what non-union staff members in this building receive, they get up at the library.
Okay, so it's through here that is what it is then?
Right, they're on our pay grade system.
Right, there still is
They,
like a contract in a way,
well, it's not a contract, they're non-contracted
Right.
employees. Yeah, as Jeff said, we only have 2 unions now
Right.
going forward in 2015. So all of the non-union employees are basically lumped in together, and
Okay.
depending on how the negotiations work, then the library would get what everybody else gets.
okay,
And generally speaking, the non-union employees get very similar to what the union contracts call for monetarily.
right.
Right,
Right,
that's been our tradition.
Okay. Well, at this point, if there's no further discussion, we probably need to look at it and make our decision based off either what was presented at the 3.7.
I would just like to remind you that we do have to open this up for public comment.
Right, yeah,
so-
we can, but we still need to look at that too, and
Right.
we can make a comment on that, open it up at that point.
Robbie, before you go to that, one quick question is on page 24 of 26. It's called other charges, and that's 15,000. What is that about?
Other charges is just kind of a catch-all, where it doesn't really fit into any of the other line items.
Okay. And that seems to really be up this year. compared to the last 2 or 3 years?
Well, for this year, and they're on that page, depends on, that's just for the motor vehicle fund, that's the total for the whole motor vehicle fund down there in the bottom. Leroy, it's like only, in the past, in 2011, if you look at the one above there, above the motor vehicle, it was 18,000 in 2011, and it's only 5,000 this year, under actuals.
Thank you.
With the cable being negotiated, or this coming year more than anything, now in there we've got equipment. I mean, it's all part of the negotiations. I mean, it's part for updating all the equipment and that. But that won't go until the 2016, I presume?
That is a special revenue fund, so that's not
Right.
actually impacted by the levy.
Right.
But anything that is negotiated, depending on when the timing and the funding would be when you could start making those purchases or changes. So it depends on how that all shakes out in the end.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Well, I mean, I've done some talking even after I've talked to Ron the other day to get the numbers at the 2% and the 2 and then 2.5%. And based on some other things, I found out that some other arbitrations that have happened, that the number's been around 2.5% that they've come back with through arbitration with some of the unions throughout the state. That's kind of the average that's been coming out of all of this. What if we went with the 2 and then the 2.5 on July the 1st? I mean, that's going to save some, and then it's also going to, I mean, it's going to be a 3.5% increase, and then it'll lower the tax capacity a little bit more, or raise the tax capacity a little bit more to 61.9.
Well, I could certainly live with that.
I mean, that would cover us in case, you know, arbitration comes about and we, you know,
Don't fare so well.
yeah. I mean, because we can still ask for the lower amount and then, and go from there if, or we can stick with the 2.5 and go at 3.7. I mean, it's, you know, 2.2 percentage points difference.
Just from a practical aspect, if the council wanted to lower that with Robbie's suggestion of 2 and then 2.5 on July 1st, would that hold off the adoption of the budget until next, we could just make that change here, and then you would have to go in and officially change a couple of the numbers here and there?
Right, I have the numbers here using those different scenarios that I had mentioned earlier, just in case you did choose to go with one of the other options. So we can just change the numbers tonight, and then we'll just update the resolution, but we would not have to delay the actual adoption.
Oh, okay, okay.
Any thoughts, folks?
Kinda like the 2 and 2.5.
Well, at this time, then, if there's no further discussion, the chair will take a motion to approve.
No, we have to open it up.
That's right, we do have to open it up. So at this time, we will open up the floor for discussion purposes from anyone that wishes to ask any questions about the budget. I'm waiting for the mad rush at the door.
No, not yet.
You can dive that way first.
All right, seeing as there's no one that wishes to discuss the budget at this time, we will move on, and the chair will take a motion to adopt the 2015 tax levy and budget with the numbers presented. And do you have those numbers, Linnell, so we could put it in the?
Yes, for the 2% for the first 6 months and 2.5% for the remainder of the year, the levy would be increased at 3.5%. The total levy would be $2,246,709, and the estimated tax capacity rate would be 61.90.
So that would be more than what the 3.7, I mean, the amount would be more than the 3.7 that you had up there earlier?
3.5? Is that what you're asking?
But what the actual,
Oh, you mean the tax rate capacity
okay.
or percentage, whatever you call it.
Okay, I got it. Never mind, I wrote it in the wrong spot.
Okay.
Yeah, that dropped slightly.
Yeah. Okay. So the chair will take a motion to approve the 2015 levy at $2,246,709 at 3.5%, and that's with a 2% COLA increase on January 1st and 2.5 July 1st.
And I will second that.
Motion by Merle and a second by Bill. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. I'd like to say thank you to all the staff. I know you guys put a lot of work into it. It's just one of those things every year that drives everybody crazy, even Leroy. It'll drive him crazy even after he leaves the council here at the end of the month.
One more meeting.
But I want to say thanks for all the hard work, and you know, we still have to run the city. We've done good in the past of keeping it down as far as possible with increases in health care and other things. We have to do what we have to do when it comes to that, and with the tax capacity rate increasing, that's going to help also. So at this time, we'll move on to reports. Tom?
I just want to comment on one item here. I look at the budget from today and I look at it from 2008, and I'll just comment on Public Works. We're operating about 11% lower than we were 7 years ago. Every year you've kind of looked my way and said, you know, are you comfortable, are you comfortable, are you comfortable? Well, this is probably the last year I'm going to say that I'm comfortable. We've cut fat, we've cut bone, we've cut muscle, and I see programs in town we haven't put a penny in. Archie Swenson Field or John Birch Field, we haven't put a penny in those in 7 years, and you all know as homeowners that can't happen. You know, we can push it down the road a little bit, but I think we're to the point now that I'm uncomfortable looking any of you in the face and telling you the truth and saying that I'm comfortable next year with the same numbers. So, you know, I just want to kind of give you a heads up. Like I said, I've always been comfortable and I've always told you the truth, but this year I'll tell you the truth that I don't feel comfortable with where it will head next year if we try to use some of these same numbers. And like Leroy can comment, we hauled twice as much sludge this year because we were kind of, same thing, we were kind of pushing it down the road to the point to where we're almost overflowing. We haul out twice as much. We do try to be competitive. There's not a whole lot of haulers that haul en masse like that, so we're kind of, it's the nature of the business.
The one thing I noticed too, Tom, that I didn't like after being on here for this many years now is when you talked about you're cutting the meat, you're cutting the bone, and you're into the muscle. I've been listening to you every year we have a budget, and this year I seen you cut the blacktopping budget again, and I just wonder how we can keep doing that, because I noticed last year in the road over behind Gibson over there, this actually didn't get repaired till the end of the year, and I can't help but think that's probably got something to do with budget, the way things are going. So I didn't like the idea that was cut another 7,000 this year, but I guess that's where you have to keep us informed is, yeah, it's all fine to look good cutting the budget, but all of a sudden if you gotta replace the whole street because you didn't spend any money patching it up, it comes back to bite you in another way. So I do appreciate what you do, and I do appreciate your work, so thank you.
Yep, there's two prongs, I'll comment on that. We like to spend the most money on our best roads. That's why you see like Forest Street by Gibson's, that's the last place we're gonna throw our dollars at, is the worst road in town. And as our roads continue to get better, we need less money for asphalt repairs and patching, so that goes down quite a bit too. So it kinda goes hand in hand, where the better the roads get, the less money we can back off on that somewhat. But we're to the point now, like I say, we can't just continue to run on 2008 numbers like this, because it's, you and I know, 1%, 2% is going to go up no matter what I do. Utilities and fuel are going to go up each year, and I can't keep scaling that back. So that's just something I wanted you to make aware of. I also did look through the numbers here, and if I use the budget from 2008, and if I kept it flat all the way through the years, we've saved about $5 million over the last 7 years. So I think that's a lot to be said, for you as a council and staff too, that $5 million. And that's if the budget would have been level. Had we taken the increases, we probably would have been looking at $7 million more today, what we would have spent in the last 7 years. So I think we've, but I just don't want to show, start showing up in the quality of things around town. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Mike?
I'll visit next meeting with some equipment items that Mr. Johnson presents on the agenda.
Thanks. Chief?
A couple of things. I had a meeting this morning regarding Billsby Dam. If council will recall, I updated you last meeting. We continue to work with our partners at Goodhue County and Dakota County, as well as some of the state and federal agencies, in just planning the what-ifs and making sure that we're well prepared. Second thing I wanted to touch on was we're into the December safe and sober, or correction, towards zero death wave, which is impaired driving. Hopefully we won't find any takers who want to get a ride, but I sadly think we will. I just want to remind people to, drink responsibly, plan a sober ride, or take a cab. We've got, cab service in town. Just don't drive if you're impaired. It's not worth the risk to yourself or others that you're sharing the road with. That's all I have.
Chief, while I got you there, I'd just like to say congratulations on your credentialing with the state's the Minnesota Chiefs of Police Association, and congratulations on all the hard work.
Thank you. If you recall, last year I served as president of the State Chiefs Association. This has been a project that we've had underway for the last 3 years. I was very proud to see that come to into being. By the time I was leaving my presidency, it took us a little while longer to get the application process and all that set. As it translates to, really it becomes sort of a measuring stick. For council, I have the master's certification, which is the highest level that we certify, and it just attests to the the training experience and education that I have, and that knowledge that I bring to my job in our community. I appreciate all the support both Ron and Aaron gave in moving forward in that. In particular, Ron wrote some very nice stuff and provided it to the league while they were preparing the story that went out to you guys. So thank you very much for the recognition.
Just one item, as far as I sent out some information to you on the League of Minnesota Cities newly elected officials, which Kathy is planning on attending. And also there's an experienced officials conference coming up in end of January, I believe it is, or February. So if anybody is interested, let me know, let Linnell know. We'll get you registered. But probably the sooner the better. There's some pretty good material at those conferences or those workshops. I think they're a 2-day, a Friday and a Saturday. And otherwise, thanks for your support on the budget and levy. Staff did a really nice job. Tom got his axe out again. I'm not sure how, but we'll be monitoring that. We're working with Ellers right now on coming to you with a review of the rates here pretty soon. Tom and Linnell and I reviewed the CIP that was in the last rate study for water, sanitary sewer, and storm sewer. And there's a lot of figures in there that are fairly large based on what appears to be a fairly large projection of population for Cannon Falls. That a real aggressive approach, so I think some of those expenses that we talked about, and we're talking with Rebecca Kurtz from Ehlers, we think can be really pushed off. Some of them can probably be eliminated, but we'll be coming back to you with that, perhaps at the next meeting, maybe one of the January meetings. But I think it'll look a little rosier, perhaps, maybe not, but we're hoping optimistically than before with water and sewer rates.
If I could comment on water and sewer rates, I have kind of the same kind of a chart here with the surrounding cities, and we're about average. We're slightly under on water and slightly over on sewer. Now, the reason that doesn't alarm me is a lot of those cities have not rebuilt their wastewater plants, so when that hits home, people will see. But typically, I just ask people if they think their water bill's high, they should call us, because many times we find a leaking toilet and they've been paying a double water bill what they should have been for years and blaming it on high rates. But if anybody's got questions on their water bills that they think they're high, I have the charts right down to the person, how much it's going to probably cost you on an average. But there's a lot of people that they're letting their toilets run and they're not thinking twice of it. But it's just like letting your lights run all night. You're going to pay for it, but they don't seem to have the same correlation with water. So I think our water rates, like I say, it's going to be a huge thing in the future everywhere with water rates. But the pharmaceuticals that we may have to take out, we have to take out some of the phosphates, and now it gets to be very expensive to treat wastewater. So the less clean water we get coming to our plant, so the better off we are, the cheaper it is for everybody. So that's, if I could just pass it on to everybody. Thank you.
Merrill?
Nothing?
Nothing. I have nothing.
Leroy?
I gotta apologize. Are you Kathy Gallup?
Yeah, Gallup, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I wanted to congratulate you and thank you for running, and look forward to talking to you and wish you the best. And then happy holidays to everybody out there, and please be safe. Thank you.
Nothing.
I've got one thing. I got a letter talking about hauling and everything, that we got our annual report from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency on the biosolids land spreading annual report for cropping year 2014 for the city, and it's been reviewed and recorded, and the report was complete and well done as received. So they want to say good job to you guys for the job you do. I know it's a lot of work down there, and so thank you for that. And Kathy, your first meeting to sit and watch tonight after being elected, so we look forward to you joining us here in the next beginning of the year, and welcome. Other than that, Chair will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.